Final Fantasy VIII is a bit unusual. If you have experience playing it blind, good chance you had one of two experiences. You either had no idea what the hell was going on with the Junction System and the game was pretty difficult as a result, or you found guides, had help from an experienced player, or maybe you're just some innate genius that got it right off the bat, and as a result broke this game into so many pieces that it was probably the easiest JRPG you've ever played. It really doesn't have much in between those two extremes. The Junction System is among the most exploitable mechanics in all of RPGdom. So I wanted to take this game, which is a personal favorite of mine from childhood, and give it a new coat of paint. Do something with it that leaned into its strengths and avoided the common pitfalls. Here's what I came up with. A rigidly enforced, self-imposed job system for all of the main cast. This one is actually pretty complex, which is fitting for FF8 to be honest, so I drew up a Google Sheets document that has all of my rules in a quick referenceable format. The document will be made public with the release of this video and you can find the link in the description, so feel free to peruse at your leisure. But for those who are too lazy to look up some spreadsheet full of color-coded text boxes, let me explain the gist. There are 6 main cast members in this game, and 2 temporary guests. Each of those 8 characters is assigned a classic Final Fantasy job. I won't be revealing each character right away, as it would be more dramatic to give a detailed synopsis when that character joins the party, but we can use our intrepid hero as the perfect example to start us off and give something more tangible to grab onto. For this challenge, I assigned the painfully introverted protagonist of our story the classic Final Fantasy job of Paladin. I think it fits him well. His role in the story is as a knight protecting his princess and trekking to defeat the sorceress threatening the kingdom. He uses a sword, kinda, no shield, but we have to make compromises somewhere, and as the main character, he will be in the party for almost the entire game. There are only brief episodes where someone else is in charge. So, a holy knight, capable of self-healing and having high defenses, makes for the perfect party leader. Now, let me go over what exactly the attributes of the Paladin are that I'm using for our main character. First and foremost are the junctions. Each job will have legal junctions and illegal junctions. This is referring to what stats magic can be junctioned to. In the case of Paladin, I will allow junctioning of magic to the HP, strength, vitality, spirit, and elemental defense stats freely. I will also allow junctioning to elemental attack, but only if the spell junction is holy, to flavor for having radiant attacks like Divine Smite or something. Some examples of illegal junctions are magic, speed, and status defense and attack. Our boy can't improve those stats because they aren't part of his kit. The next most important facet of job identity in play here is a legal magic list. There are dozens of spells in this game, so locking down a job-specific spell list is paramount. Paladin will have access to the following: the Cure family, Life and Full Life, Protect, Shell, Float, and Reflect as buffs, and finally, Holy. That's it. Those are his only options in combat. Any other spells are fine to draw and hold on his person, and even junction to stats, legal ones at least, but he cannot cast them, ever. Only the list provided in his job identity. Next are commands. These are obviously important, but there is a lot of overlap here since there aren't actually that many commands in this game. In the case of Paladin, he will have access to attack, magic, draw, defend, absorb, and kamikaze. You might be confused at some of those choices. Basically, absorb and kamikaze are so weird and unwieldy that I was like, nobody in their right mind would use them anyway, so go for it. Maybe more important than what he can use are what he can't. The most notable exclusions here are GF and item. That's right, summoning and even using items are the purview of jobs for this challenge, so not everybody will have access to them. That's kind of the point. Reduce reliance on overly cheesy tactics. Finally, the last important facet of job identity here are the legal abilities that may be junctioned. Most of them are pretty straightforward. Generally, any stat that can be junctioned to can also be improved with plus abilities, for example, vitality plus 20%. Bonus abilities as well, should they exist, such as vitality bonus. I allow everybody to use ability X3 and X4 because those feel universally good and it would be weird to limit specific jobs to how many abilities they get. And specific to Paladin, I include Auto Protect, Shell, and Potion, as well as Cover, Counter, Return Damage, and Ribbon. Move HP up is also there, but pretty blah. And that about covers jobs, so let me outline the primary rules that are mostly there to enforce the job challenge, but also make the game more difficult. My 8 rules are as follows. 1. A character may junction any available GF. There are no restrictions on who can use what GF, and they may be passed around freely. However, there are definitely GFs who are better suited to specific jobs, and those are listed on the jobs page on my spreadsheet. They are only suggestions. As long as the job-specific rules are followed, any GF is fair game. 2. A character may only cast spells in their specific spell list, as outlined on the job sheet. However, they may draw or refine any magic and junction it where appropriate. I will be using refining in a limited capacity. Basically, I will be making judgment calls on what is appropriate for the progress and the story, so no refining tornado in Disc 1. But if I have the refine ability for making fire, and some items that can make fire, that's totally fair, I think. To go along with another rule further down the list, I will also allow characters to trade magic freely. It also makes more sense that way, since characters drop in and out of the party. 3. A character may only use the junctions, character abilities, magic, commands, etc. that are legal for that character's job, but as mentioned, any spell can be junctioned to a legal stat. 4. The stats that are legal to be junctioned to will be listed on the job sheet, and even if a GF provides a junction ability outside of that purview, it must be avoided. For example, even if our hero junctions a GF, such as Quetzalcoatl, that provides magic junction, he may never junction to the magic stat. 5. Limit breaks. Here is where things get a little more complicated. In general, the aura spell is forbidden, with one exception. I don't want to give specifics just yet, but there is a character whom I will allow free access to the aura spell. If you think about it, you can probably guess who. Anybody else, if a limit break naturally comes up due to crisis level mechanics, then it may be used. Some more character-specific limit break restrictions are also outlined, but those will be explained when they become relevant. 6. The only GF abilities that may be taught via items are those that cannot be learned via AP. Those are Return Damage, Ribbon, Vitality plus 60%, Spirit plus 60%, and Minimog. All other GF abilities must be learned with AP. I'm not outright banning Amnesia Greens, but probably won't be using them much. 7. The change button may be utilized in combat, but only to change characters, not to spam and force limit breaks. For example, if I want to hold my healer back and keep an action ready for a heal, that's fine to switch to another free character and use their action instead. But mashing the triangle button so I can spam duel with Zell is not allowed. Finally, 8. Draw may be used up to 3 times per character per battle, and for the vast majority of the story, no running around grinding battles. This is to limit how many spells the party has on hand, just to make it more difficult. It is super easy to farm up 100 of whatever you need early in the game, so to prevent that, only 3 uses of the draw ability. Failures are included in that, by the way. Whew, I think that about covers the extent of the rules here. This one really is a doozy of a challenge, but the complexity of the junction system demands it honestly. My goals with this are to give each character in the party some very specific party roles so that there's a reason to use everyone. So portioning out the most powerful tools makes it so no single character dominates every battle. I'm not looking for jacks of all trades, I'm looking for specialized masters of their craft. With all that out of the way, I think it's finally time to get into the game and begin the challenge in earnest. If you enjoy following along with this journey, it would help me out a lot if you hit that subscribe button. I'm still a growing channel, so every little bit helps, truly. And if you want to try something like this out yourself, leave a comment telling us about your choices. It would be really cool to see how other people build their parties differently from mine. Here we go, Liberi Fatali, the most epic opening cutscene of all time. Latin chanting, floating feathers and flower petals, a clash between warriors on some nondescript overcast crag. Great stuff, 10 out of 10, would watch again. Then we come to in the infirmary and see the in-engine graphics, and have friendly Dr. Katawaki looking after us. Now we finally get to name the protagonist of this story. I wanted his name to be appropriate to his job and role as a knight, and I recently had an experience in a Civilization 6 game that made me particularly appreciative of a specific hero. So in his honor, I will be naming our main character Arthur. Time for our knight in shining armor to ride off into battle. Dr. Katawaki calls Arthur's instructor in to pick him up, introducing us to Quistis, our bombshell teacher. Quistis walks Arthur back to class, giving him a bit of a hard time along the way. Clearly, Arthur is not excited about getting this sort of attention. We will get to know this character very well over the next 40 to 50 hours, and definitely his aversion to being around other humans is a core trait of his. That very much includes people who are considered his friends. He would definitely rather be home alone listening to loud, screamy music. We now go to the classroom and see Quistis inform the class that today is the Seed final exam. She also calls out Cypher by name for injuring Arthur, which he gives a half-hearted little pathetic slam on the desk in response. At this point, homeroom is dismissed and all the other students leave, finally giving us full control over Arthur. The first task here, as with any run of FF8, is to grab our first 2 GFs tucked in Arthur's personal computer lodged in his desk. I will not be renaming GFs for this run, as it would just create unnecessary confusion for managing builds. So our 2 GFs that we get here are Quetzalcoatl and Shiva. Quetzalcoatl is a bit magic focused. He has magic junction, as well as magic plus 20% and 40% in his kit. He also has HP and vitality, and a couple elemental focus junctions, so he could be a viable pickup for Paladin. Shiva, on the other hand, is tailor-made for our hero. She comes with strength, vitality, and spirit, as well as elemental attack and defense, all good for Paladin. And she can learn vitality and spirit plus percent as well. Truly, Shiva is going to be attached at the hip to Arthur from now on. Starting out, Shiva only has spirit junction, but we have no magic anyway, so no big. This will have to be a later problem. Quistis mentions something about the Fire Cavern, and that is a prerequisite for the Seed exam. Oh, Arthur, you procrastinator. She offers to tag along. I guess an instructor is required to accompany. And these 3 chuckleheads next to her are called the Trapees. They're creepy Quistis fans who stalk her. Why she allows this is beyond me. I think a restraining order is called for here. Out in the hall, a girl comes running and crashes into Arthur. Say, that hairstyle looks familiar. She asks for help learning the garden, so Arthur agrees and they start toward the elevator. Along the way, some very nice man gives a deck of cards to Arthur. He refuses to play, but thanks for the starter deck, man. We'll be needing these soon enough. Arthur goes to the directory to teach the girl about the school. This doubles as a tutorial for the layout of the garden for new players. Personally, I really love Balam Garden as a setting and sort of hub area of the game. It's pretty big with lots to explore, very little danger, only the training area has enemies, and of course the music is very nostalgic and calming. The girl says her thanks and gets going. I'm sure we will see more of her later. There isn't a whole lot of reason to explore the school right now. In the library, we find our first draw point, which contains Asuna. Those are going straight into Arthur's spirit stat, as he can't cast Asuna anyway. There is also a book around here we can pick up called Occult Fan 1. But other than that, we might as well just get going towards the first dungeon. Out at the front gate, Quistis is in street clothes, but she is very much still in teacher mode as she goes straight into a junctioning tutorial. Good thing I already know how to do all this. Thanks anyway, Teach. She joins the party now, so this is a good time to explain about Quistis' job and her abilities in this run, as she is rather unique. Quistis will be playing the role of Summoner. That's right, our lovely instructor here will be the only character in the party capable of using the GF command. That means no particular GF is better or worse for her really, whichever is free and has a good summon ability is fine. She will be allowed to junction to HP, Magic, Spirit, and Luck. And because Summons only is a little restrictive, I went the FF4 route and give her some basic magic. She can use the first tier of elemental nukes, which includes Fire, Blizzard, Thunder, Arrow, and Water. I will also let her use Scan, and as mentioned, Aura. Why can she use Aura, you ask? Why, because her limit break is blue magic. So in addition to being a summoner, she's double dipping as a blue mage. Blue magic is a pretty weak limit break compared to the others in this game, but it's highly adaptable, so it allows for good tactical decisions in battle. Finally, one last little caveat for Quistis, I will allow her to be one of 2 characters able to use the item command. Not much, but gives her a little support. With the explanation out of the way, let's get her equipped. Quetzalcoatl is free, so she can use him. As a summoner, she will be wanting all the summon boosting abilities, so she starts out learning Summon Magic Plus with Quetz. Quetzalcoatl also comes pre-packaged with the Magic Junction ability, so as soon as she gets her hands on some magic, she can put something there to increase her key stat. Out into the world we go. A few minor random encounters later, and the team is already packing a respectable pile of magic. Some fires and thunders and cures picked up along the way, even a couple scans, which Quistis will be able to use. Quistis has fire junctioned to her magic now, which is increasing it a good amount. When we arrive at the fire cavern, Quistis gives a couple more tutorials about limit breaks and stuff, and then we get the option to set a time limit before heading inside. Does anybody really need 40 minutes to clear this dungeon? I set the timer to 10 and get moving. The path is very linear, with not much to see. Quistis tries to chat with Arthur along the way, but he's really not going along with it. Of course, there are several battles in here as well, which really just serve as more magic to stockpile. When we get to the end, we are thrown into a battle with Ifrit, the GF. Only 4 minutes to beat him. After getting 3 draws each, the battle really begins. It was a bit risky, but Ifrit dropped Arthur to critical HP and allowed him to use Renzokuken. Then, before he could use another turn, he got hit with fire, which dropped him to a whopping 2 HP remaining. Fortunately, Arthur could swap to healing and keep himself alive. Quistis meanwhile started nuking with blizzards, doing about 100 damage each cast. Thanks to the high damage from Blizzard and that early Renzokuken, Ifrit was taken out with about a minute remaining on the clock. He drops his card, which is super handy, but more importantly, now we have another GF to introduce, Ifrit. Ifrit is very attack-focused. His main stats are HP, Strength, and Elemental Attack and Defense. After learning a few strength-increasing abilities, he even has Strength bonus. He will be right at home with physical attackers. We give Ifrit to Arthur for now, which allows him to junction to Strength. Slotting Cure in there gives a tiny boost. Ifrit also comes with Elemental Attack available, but Arthur can't use that unless he has the Holy Spell, which won't be for a very long time yet. Now, time to get out of this sweaty-ass cave. On the way out, Arthur stocks some more fire spells, which he then puts in Strength in lieu of Cure. Since he also has a lot more Cure than Asuna now, he junctions Cure to Spirit. And that's about it for now. Back to school. At the front gate, Quistis has one last tutorial to give, explaining GFs and how they learn abilities. And now she leaves the party, which means Arthur is all alone again. He grabs Quetzalcoatl and all her magic. He can't use any of Quetzalcoatl's abilities, but it is a good idea to make sure it is always gaining AP and learning new abilities. Also, since Quistis isn't around at the moment, he changes the Learn over to Vitality Junction for a bit. Now Arthur makes the trek over to the nearby town of Balam. Along the way, Arthur has a bit of a humbling experience. See, in these forests lurk a dangerous monster called the T-Rexar. These guys are way too hard for the beginning of the game. They aren't impossible by any means, but they hit for over 100 per bite and have thousands of HP. I spent a long time just smacking it over and over and healing out of death range, hoping the next hit would finally be the one that finished it off. But then, the damn thing got a crit, and that was it. First game over. Well, nothing to it but to get back on the horse and try again. So we continue over to Balam Town, this time avoiding the forest. In Balam, another humbling experience, this time in the card game. See, I play Triple Triad all the time in FF14, so I came in hot and cocky. No way I could lose at this game that I've devoted a ton of time into, right? The difference here is that in FF14, I have literally every card. I have a very powerful deck, and in that game, there's no danger of losing cards. In this one, I have nothing but trash, and losing a match means losing my best card, in this case, Ifrit, which is exactly what happened. Tried to win it back, and failed at that too. Well, isn't that great? Note to self, respect the card game. So, loading my save back outside, and this time I won't be playing unless I've got a backup. The goal of coming to this town, though, is actually cards. I want to play with the Queen of Cards a little bit to set up some different trading rules and also earn a few better cards for my deck. So, after saving and reloading several times, I managed to get her to spread the diff trading rule around the region. This means now I get a number of cards from my opponent instead of just one. And with some careful play and reloading, I managed to snag some good cards too, much better than the level 1 crap you start with. There are no rare cards around here though, so the big prize was the trading rule change. The fun continues back in Balam Garden. Now we are hunting some specific cards to beef up our deck. A few people around here are packing up to level 5 monster cards, which are much better than what we've been using. After stocking up on a few of those, we go to hunt the rare cards in the area. First up is Minimog, from this little kid running laps in the main hall. This takes a few tries, as most people only play their rare cards sometimes, but the game that he finally used it, I did a clean sweep and won his whole hand. Well, that's our very first rare card snagged through play. Very satisfying to claw up to this point after losing a bunch in the beginning. Over in the cafeteria is another rare card though, the Quistis card. This one is actually held by 3 different characters, though you can only get it from one of them. The aforementioned creepy Quistis stalkers, the Trapies. The Trapie in the cafeteria uses the Quistis card right away. Look at how good that thing is. Unfortunately, the overwhelming splendor of it all caused me to draw the game. And then he didn't use her again for a good while. Several games later, she comes out again, and this was a bit of a spicy game. It was a draw until the literal last minute when I snagged his Quistis with my Ifrit. But thanks to that, I got my hands on the first player card, and these are very powerful indeed. Big upgrade to my deck. There will be plenty of time to play cards later, but that's all we can really do right now, so let's head to the next task, which is the Seed Field Exam. Arthur goes to his cramped dorm room and changes into his school uniform. I think the little detail of his jacket hanging up in the background is a nice touch. Then we go to the main hall to meet Quistis again and get assigned our team. First up, we meet Zell, who, naturally, Arthur immediately starts badmouthing. How can you hate this guy? Look at those sweet moves. Zell is one of those talk before you think kind of guys, so right off the bat, he sticks his foot in his mouth, bringing up Cypher and the accident from the morning. At which point, Quistis brings up that the very same Cypher is also in their squad. Ah, classic. The rivals have to team up to accomplish a task. I gotta ask, why did they make this guy the squad leader? We find out later that he has taken this test numerous times and failed. If he's so prone to failure, why would they put him in charge? Maybe it's more of a, if he isn't squad leader, he will just make life difficult for everyone sort of thing. He clearly has issues with authority. He wouldn't respond well to one of his peers giving him commands. Though that also begs the question of whether he would ever be cut out to be a seed to begin with such a clear personality deficiency. You can't exactly make for a good soldier when you can't take orders. Well, setting aside questioning the logic of a classic anime trope, Headmaster Sid rolls up to give some words of encouragement for the upcoming exam. Oh my god. Sid, what happened to you, man? You look ill? Have you seen a doctor recently? Everybody piles into a car and a very awkward scene follows. Zell asks to see Arthur's gunblade, but gets the cold shoulder. Zell, incapable of just sitting quietly, stands up and starts punching the air, only for Cypher to tell him to sit down and calls him a chicken wuss.
He's a chicken. A chicken. Go, 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 go!
Arthur is pretty skilled driving the car from the back seat. Definitely want to learn how he does that. At the docks in Balam, we see the boats all lined up and ready to depart. It seems we are the last squad to arrive. Everybody just keeps saying hurry up and get in the boat, so naturally Arthur talks to them all. Though this guy right here giving some passive-aggressive comments about Quistis, you shut your dirty mouth, man. Once everybody is in the boat, we get the full breakdown of the operation from another seed by the name of Shu. I love this lady, wish she was more prominent in the story. Shu explains that some city-state named Dollet is under attack by the G Army, and we are to help defend them. Basically, just take out as many soldiers as we can to kick them out of town. After talking to everybody, Arthur steps outside to see the big boat landing sequence. This is a pretty sweet scene for the very beginning of the game, to be honest. They went a lot harder with cinematic scenes in this game than in 7. Lots of moments like this that feel like a movie. When the boat comes crashing into a beach, we all come out and Quistis gives us our orders, secure the central square, and then kindly reminds us to equip GF. So, to that end, let's discuss our 2 party members here. We have Zell and Cypher in the group for this sequence. First up, let's get the permanent party member out of the way, Zell. Would it surprise you to hear that he will be a monk? Seems like a pretty obvious choice, as I'm sure you'd agree. So here is what the monk job has going on. Stats-wise, monks are all offense, with just a touch of survivability. As with many classic FF monks, he will have high HP and some amount of evasion as well. And then of course, strength, speed, and hit to improve his melee attacks. For a little bit of added flavor, he will also have elemental attack junction with no limits, which basically makes him like a 4 elements monk. He can junction whatever element is appropriate to a given encounter to exploit their weaknesses, a good way to add strategic value to a very simple role. As for magic, the monk job can cast nothing, not a single spell. Unique to him actually, he's the only character with no magic whatsoever. For abilities, in addition to obvious stuff like HP and strength bonus, Monk will also get access to counter, initiative, auto haste, and alert. Zell will be all about punching as hard as possible, so increasing his strength and learning what elemental weaknesses enemies have will be paramount. We have one more character here in the form of Cypher, who is only temporary, but you can actually junction him, so he needs a job too. As he is meant to be Arthur's polar opposite, it only seemed fair to make him a Dark Knight to counter Arthur's Paladin. So, taking inspiration from the way those two jobs interact in Final Fantasy XI, I designed Dark Knight as being focused on offense with a splash of black magic. Cypher isn't in the party for a long enough time for most of this to matter, so I'll just speed through this. He will be able to junction to both strength and magic, and can cast basically all offensive magic types, attack, debuff, whatever. The only things that will be particularly relevant here are that he can increase strength and use elemental spells, so just keep that in mind. For GFs, Ifrit is exactly what a monk would want, so Zell is going to be using him. Since Shiva is for Arthur, that leaves Quetzalcoatl for Cypher. Quetzalcoatl only really has magic junction right now, so that is what Cypher will be increasing. Ifrit comes with strength and elemental attack, and Zell can use both, so Zell slots some fires into his strength and thunder into elem attack. And that's our build. Let's head into town and start beating up some G soldiers. This first section of the exam consists simply of advancing through the city streets until we reach the central square and fighting everybody along the way. These soldiers have some decent magic that we want to stock up on, all 3 core elemental nukes as well as Cure, filling out the spell list of all 3 of our guys as we go. Once the central square is clear, we just have to wait for a bit and hope some more bad guys show up. Cypher is pretty impatient, constantly complaining about how boring it is and even getting mad at a cute doggo. Zell can't stand still as usual. That's when the dog starts howling and the guys get behind cover while some soldiers cross through the square. They notice a tower up on the mountain and declare that must be where the enemy is going, and that they have to follow. Zell isn't on board, since it is disobeying their orders. But Arthur agrees with Cypher for some reason. I guess he just wants a fight too. It's a weird level of camaraderie between these two characters that sure doesn't last long. Zell insists that disobeying orders is a bad idea, since this is an exam and all. They could easily fail because of this, but Cypher just goads him by calling him a Boy Scout. So they take off towards the tower. After crossing a very long bridge full of random encounters, the party reaches the path leading up the mountain. It is full of downed Dollet soldiers talking about the Galbadians who came through here. Apparently, the tower up there is also full of monsters, and right as he is telling us that, one shows up to say hello. This is kind of a mini-boss, I guess, the Anacondar. With 3 guys attacking it though, it isn't so tough, and Arthur can throw out cures where necessary. The battle is kind of long since this guy has a boatload of HP. I get to use Cypher's limit break multiple times. Thanks to that, I actually confirmed that limit breaks jump the queue in this game as well, so good to know. Once the Anacondar is dead, Cypher pushes onwards up the mountain. At the summit, we see the soldiers run into the tower talking about repairing it. In another weird show of camaraderie, Cypher and Arthur start talking about their dreams. Of course, Cypher takes every chance he can to goad Zell, and Zell falls for it every single time. Then, out of nowhere, cue CGI cutscene of cute girl tumbling down the rocks. She says she is a messenger looking for the squad captain, and she also introduces herself as Selphie. When they spot Cypher down the mountain, Selphie takes a leap over the side of the cliff to go after him. We could also jump, but that's bad for the knees, you know? Now we are officially rid of Cypher forever, and in his place, Selphie joins the party. So time to give the big reveal of what role she will be playing in this adventure. Selphie is going to be assigned the job of White Mage. That means she will have a focus on magic with some minor defensive abilities. She will be allowed to junction to magic, spirit, evasion, elemental defense, status defense, and elemental attack, but only holy, just like Paladin. For her spell list, she will have all the recovery spells, such as Cure, Esuna, Regen, and Life, all the support buff spells, such as Protect, Shell, Float, Reflect, and Haste, Holy for offense late in the game, and a few situational support spells, like Scan, Double and Triple, and Aura, though Aura is only usable on Quistis. Her commands and abilities pretty much follow suit. No items, though she can use Magic, Card, Treatment, Recover, and Revive. She can also use Auto Protect, Shell, and Reflect, as well as Move HP Up and Ribbon. And unique to mages, she can use the Expend abilities, which enhance Double and Triple. That about covers Selphie's White Mage. For GFs, we already have one that gives Magic Junction on hand, which is Quetzalcoatl. Right now, nobody else can make use of it, so Selphie is the perfect home. After shuffling magic around to make sure Selphie has Esuna and Cure and such, and giving her some fire to junction to magic, we are all set to proceed. One note about Selphie's limit break slot. She can use slot when it comes up naturally, like any other character, however, hers is a little funky. You can endlessly reroll forever until you find something you like, which is so ridiculously cheesy. So the rule with slot is that when the ability is selected, whatever comes up first must be used. That might make her limit break kind of suck, but as a white mage, she will find plenty of value in the party regardless. Inside the tower, the crew beat up some more soldiers, then take the elevator up, where a scene plays featuring some wacky characters. These are the iterations of Biggs and Wedge for this game, and they are a couple of goofballs, recurring Galbadian soldiers who often engage in slapstick comedy. Right as the elevator reaches the top, Biggs finishes repairing the tower and it activates, opening up into a massive satellite dish. That's when Arthur and Biggs notice each other, and Biggs tries to slink away. Cypher slaps whatever weird thing was in his hands, and a battle begins. Without Cypher. Where did he go? Why isn't he involved in this fight? Is he just standing there watching with his thumb up his ass? So this is a multi-tiered fight. First up is just Biggs alone, a rather easy encounter. But since this fight has multiple stages, it is important to remember the draw rule. There are only 3 draws per character per fight, and this one involves several targets shifting in and out. So for that reason, saving draws for later. After smacking Biggs around for a bit, Wedge comes in to assist his boss. They still aren't much of a threat, but after a few attacks, suddenly a weird blast of wind comes down. The goofy duo get blown away, and the real boss flies down to attack us, Elveret. Elveret has a few key things worth drawing. First of all, this guy is holding a GF, so first draw must be that, which is Siren. Second, it has a new spell on the bottom of its list, Double. Double is incredibly good at this point in the game, so all 3 of the team try to get their hands on a few. Draw fails a few times, and those count as attempts, so we don't get as much as we could. Elveret actually does pretty reasonable damage to the party, especially with Storm Breath. Selphie is pretty busy keeping everybody healthy here, while Zell pounds on the boss and Arthur does double duty, healing and attacking where appropriate. The fight ends pretty much without incident, and we walk away with a new fancy GF and a weapons magazine. Let's talk about Siren for a minute. Siren comes with more Magic Junction and can learn Magic Plus as well as Magic Bonus, very good for the mages. But she also has status attack and status defense junctions, so those will be handy once we get our hands on more status magic to protect against nastiness. She can eventually learn Treatment, which is a good ability for Selphie. Finally, she has some generically valuable quality of life stuff like Move, Find, and Tool Refine. All in all, she is best suited with Selphie for the moment, and focusing on improving magic and status defense. Selphie calls out to Cypher, who was totally there the whole time, and gives him her message, that all the seeds have been recalled to the beach within 30 minutes. Now we have a timer running while we make our way back through the city streets. Not much time to do stuff like junction and rearrange magic. And to top it all off, once we go down the elevator, Biggs suddenly springs to life and starts tapping on some handheld device he was carrying, saying some ominous things. Once we leave the tower through the front door, we see what he was doing. a giant mechanical spider jumps down on top of us from the top of the tower. This guy is way more bark than bite. Almost none of its attacks deal more than 40 or 50 damage. The only one to really watch out for is Ray Bomb, which deals nearly 100 to the whole party. But with a dedicated healer, that's not a huge deal, and Zell and Arthur can focus on damage. I should also mention that Zell has been rocking 100 Thunders junction to his elemental attack this entire mission, and all for this fight. This thing is weak to lightning damage, so having those Thunders junctioned means Zell does a lot more damage. The difference is about 100 per hit from Zell compared to 60 from Arthur, even with the guaranteed crits that Arthur can make with his trigger. When enough damage has been dealt, the robot falls to the ground, giving an opportunity to escape. The team tries to get away, but the very next screen sees the persistent bot show up again. The chase is on. There are several moments during the return to the beach where the big spider robot can attack the party. Like before, dealing enough damage will knock it down and allow for an escape. After several such battles, the team manages to get as far as the city streets between the beach and the central square, where they were assigned to begin with. Here is where they make their final stand. Even though the spider bot falls down several times, they just keep hammering it, but it has so much HP. To give some indication, the final battle with it started at 18 minutes left on the timer, and by the time it finally went down, there was only 1 minute left. During that time, there were a handful of limit breaks from each character. Quite the slog if you ask me, but the rewards are pretty neat. A power wrist and 50 AP, which is a whole lot for this level. For the remaining time, everybody runs back to the beach and make it just in time, getting on the boat and sailing back to Balam. Cypher badmouths his team to his friends as soon as the boat lands. Typical. Then Quistis comes out and tells Arthur to take it easy and go back to the garden when he's ready. We got a ton of AP from that last battle, so some ability shuffling is in order. And once we get back from the dock, we can see Cypher driving off in the car, leaving us stranded. On the way out of town, we stop by Zell's house and meet his mom. She has his card. How cute, I think. At the front gate to the school, the party breaks up, leaving Arthur alone once again. Sid is in the main hall, talking to Shu and Quistis about the results. I guess the city of Dollet made an arrangement with the invaders to keep the tower running. Cypher can be found a short distance away, and when Arthur approaches him, he starts glazing himself about his great decision-making. Quistis and Shu come over and tell Cypher that he will be the one to take the fall for disobeying orders, and when he lashes out at Quistis, he gets some harsh words from Shu. Sid basically repeats what they said. Cypher is responsible and will be punished, though when Sid tries to give Cypher a little bit of a pep talk, suddenly he's interrupted. These garden staff guys sure can stomp all over Sid when they want to. Well, time to go wait for the test results. Upstairs in the hallway outside the classroom, everybody is waiting patiently, and after a short while, a garden faculty walks in. He calls out to Zell first, then Arthur, and then says, "That's it." In the graduation ceremony, we can see Selphie and... who is this guy? Sid makes a grand speech about seeds and what they stand for, and gets trampled on by the garden faculty again. Something up with those guys. Sid does have a personalized message for each person here. Selphie is going to put on the garden festival, so he mentions that to her. Rando Magoo over here gets a meta joke about standing out. Zell is told he needs to keep himself under control. No kidding with that one, Sid. And then for Arthur. Finally, a gunblade specialist? That's it? How impersonal. That says precisely nothing about how he feels about Arthur as a human being. Later that night, Selphie ambushes Arthur in his dorm and tells him to change into yet another outfit. Again, you can see it in the background. That's pretty cool. So I guess this is the official Seed uniform, slightly different from the school uniform. Now the setting is a fancy schmancy party. Arthur being a wallflower, which is exactly as expected. Zell runs up and tries to be friendly, but Arthur blows him off. Then Selphie comes over and asks him to help her in the Garden Festival Committee, to which you actually get an option. It's super weird that you can decide some things for Arthur, but others he's just an ass about it. Anyway, I decided to be nice to her here. After Selphie runs off happy, there's a very short CGI scene where we see a beautiful raven-haired girl in a pale dress notice unsociable Arthur in the corner and approach him. Back in-engine graphics, she invites him to dance. He refuses, but she doesn't take no for an answer, and we go back to the CGI again. This scene confused me a lot as a kid, because initially Arthur flubs all his dance moves. He just steps all over the girl and everybody around him. And then, literal seconds later, he pulls off the dance flawlessly. It didn't make much sense to me at the time, but they actually do explain this inconsistency later. Fast forward a little bit, when you meet this girl again at a later time, he explains that social skills like dancing are mandatory for seeds as part of their training. He was faking his bad dancing skills at first because he actually didn't want to dance, but changed his mind, I guess. That's a really impressive bit of world building that I really didn't appreciate until now. After the dance, suddenly the girl runs off for some pressing business, leaving our boy hanging on the dance floor. He slinks off to some private corner. That's when Quistis approaches. She asks Arthur to join her to some seedy location in the training area that students often visit after hours. Arthur gets the wrong idea that it's some attempt to bust students breaking the rules, but he goes along anyway. After changing into his casual clothes, we meet up with her in the entrance to the training area. Another short tutorial later, this time about status junctions, and we got Quistis back in the party for a bit. This will take some finagling since the GFs in Magic are all scattered between Selphie and Zell at the moment. For the most part, Quistis will want all of what Selphie has going on since they share traits as Magic users. Arthur can take Ifrit for the moment since he benefits more as a physical attacker. The final build is Quetzalcoatl and Siren on Quistis, Shiva and Ifrit on Arthur. While roaming about the training area, I make a point of setting Quetzalcoatl to learn Summon Magic Plus. This area has some annoying little plant monsters, but they're not much threat. They mostly are packing status magic to draw. But as Quistis warns before entering, there are also T-Rexars running around here, and it doesn't take long to run into one of them. Time to get some revenge for that sad display earlier. This one took a pretty long time. Based on my timestamps, it was about 8 minutes of constant battle. It was mostly Arthur using physical attacks and healing where needed. Quistis started out using Quetzalcoatl, which did good damage but took a lot of time. Eventually, I pivoted to casting Blizzard since it takes less time. I did stop and use Scan once just to check progress. This guy has a whopping 13,000 HP. Each hit from Arthur was a little less than 200, and Blizzard about 350, so I was doing rough head calculations of about 500 damage per round. Even using 3x speed between turns, it felt like an eternity, but not much danger this time around. Eventually, the beast went down and we got a sizable 10 AP for our troubles. Siren actually picked up her magic plus 20% here, so now Quistis is even stronger in her casting, should we fight another one of these guys. Spoiler, we don't. Arthur and Quistis arrive at Makeout Point and awkwardly stand around silently while multiple couples go at it in their vicinity. Quistis reveals the reason she dragged Arthur out here. She wanted to vent about her recent firing as instructor. Now she's just a regular seed instead of a teacher. She feels as if she failed in her career, but it's clear Arthur just doesn't care and doesn't want to support her in her time of need. Quistis is surprisingly understanding and calm, all things considered. She's the one looking for a shoulder to cry on, and Arthur is being a total jerk about it. After Arthur storms off selfishly, Quistis follows behind and we start heading out of the training area. Near the entrance, suddenly there are screams coming from up ahead. Quistis and Arthur run forward to see a girl being assaulted by some giant bug. She refers to both of our party members by name. Interesting. Well, this is a quote-unquote boss. I was shocked at how easy it was. Draw some shells from Grinaldo, since those are new and will definitely come in handy. After draws are done, Quistis lets a Quetzalcoatl summon rip, and that ends all 3 of the Raldos in one shot. Then Arthur and Quistis give a few smacks to Grinaldo, and down it goes as well. I scanned this thing, and it had about 1/10 of the HP of the random encounter T-Rex from earlier. What the hell, man? Some weird-looking ninja guys show up and rescue the girl and take her away. Quistis doesn't recognize who she is. Arthur saw her before in the infirmary for just a second, but doesn't know her either. And that's that for now. Quistis takes her leave with some final words of warning for Arthur that he shouldn't shoulder everything alone. And now we head back home. Zell is waiting on the way to the dorms, but all he has to say is that Arthur got upgraded from a double room to a single. Moving up in the world, buddy. There's an obvious magazine on his desk. It's a weapons magazine featuring some upgrades for Arthur and Zell. In the morning, Selphie calls to Arthur and tells him they already have a mission. Time to go meet them out near the front gate. Sid is waiting there with Selphie, and after some time waiting, we see Zell come flying over the turnstile with a hoverboard. He immediately gets it confiscated by the garden faculty. Smooth move, Zell. Sid gives us the rundown that our next mission is in a town called Timber, and we are to meet a faction at the station there. We learn some password about owls or whatever. This briefing is, well, brief. Arthur is made squad leader, and then we're set loose. Though Sid does have one more thing on offer here, a cursed item. Thanks, I guess? Okay, actually, this is pretty freaking awesome, and Sid is the man for giving this to us for free. This cursed item is a magical lamp containing the powerful GF Diablos. Diablos is amazing. We really can't delay in picking this thing up. The problem is that our party doesn't have the means to do the typical exploitative strategies that make him easy. Things like Uno Reverse casting Demi on him to carve up his HP, and casting Blind to make his physical attacks miss. Nobody can currently use those actions, but I never leave a challenge like this lying on the table, so I give it a shot with the party I have available. Setting up junctions much like they were in Dollet. Zell has Ifrit, Arthur has Shiva, and Selphie has Quetzalcoatl and Siren. Now Siren has magic plus 20%, and Ifrit has strength plus 20%, so those will both come in handy. Diablos is weak to wind, but we don't currently have access to that either, so just slapping any old magic and elemental attack. Once everybody's set up, we head out onto the world map, save the game, and use the magical lamp item from the inventory to start the battle. Diablos uses a lot of Demi. It's his favorite trick. Most turns are just casting Demi on a single party member, dealing 1/4 of their current HP and damage. He also has a bigger, scarier Demi called Gravija, which hits the whole party and deals 3/4 of each member's current HP and damage. It's a big ouch, dropping everybody to critical instantly. Neither of these attacks can deal lethal damage though. That's why Diablos has one more attack, a simple punch in the face. This deals generally about 100 damage, even with Protect. After a Gravija, that's pretty scary. The first attempt, it doesn't take long for Zell to get wiped out by this. Since people are brought to critical HP pretty frequently in this fight, the temptation is there to just let them stay there and use limit breaks. But man, that is playing with fire, because a physical attack can come out at any time and take them out. And remember, nobody has items in this party, so no access to Phoenix Downs. The life spell hasn't appeared yet either. Arthur and Selphie keep going for a while fighting as just two, but eventually I got super greedy and used Selphie's limit break instead of healing after a Gravija. Bad call, she gets taken down the next turn. Now it's Arthur all by himself. Game over follows shortly after, so time to start over. Attempt 2 goes to hell immediately with Zell dying within the first few turns. I throw that one, so I can just try again. Now we get into attempt 3. The strategy is basically as follows. Arthur is on Protect duty. He keeps everybody buffed with Protect to minimize damage from the punch attack. Otherwise, he uses Cure in emergencies and uses physical attacks. Zell punches things. Can't do much else. And Selphie is obviously on Cure duty, but she also keeps up Shell on herself and eventually on Arthur as well. After some testing, it turns out Shell does reduce the damage from both Demi and Gravija, halving both of them. This was the missing ingredient. Even leaving Zell totally unprotected from Demi, just keeping Selphie protected from taking so much damage made a huge difference. It wasn't so important to keep her HP high, so she could focus more on the others. And that about covers it, with Zell outputting consistent damage and Arthur dealing some as well. Eventually, Diablos went down. I felt pretty good about winning this one so early. It was a good test case for using strategy to win difficult fights even with rigid roles in the party. And now we have a very valuable new asset, Diablos the GF, as well as his card. Let's have a look at his abilities, shall we? Diablos has HP, Magic, and Hit junctions, and he can even learn Ability X3, which gives an extra ability slot. After some studying up, he can pick up the Mug ability, which will be valuable down the line, as well as the Dark Side command, which is actually pretty good. Usually getting Diablos is big because of his Ankh Half and Ankh None abilities that reduce or remove random encounters, but I won't be using those in this run. It would kinda defeat the purpose anyway since I'm already restricting resources so heavily. I give Diablos to Zell and start him learning the HP Junction ability. Eventually, I would like Darkside, since that is a very nice ability to have for Zell. It deals extra damage at the expense of some HP loss. With HP Junctions, Zell can get a very respectable HP pool, so it would be a solid synergy. Before heading out for the next destination, I head back to school for one important task, playing more cards. This time with Headmaster Sid. See, he has a very rare card indeed, the Cipher card. After a few games, I get it without much issue, and that makes for 3 player cards in my lineup, along with Diablos and Ifrit as GF cards. Now, there is a little bit of quest prep to do in Balam before shipping out to Timber. Specifically, we have to play cards with the Queen. We have to intentionally lose our Minimog card to her in order to activate a quest later in Dollet, so I play a game with her using Minimog and a bunch of trash. With a little bit of strategy, I minimize the damage by keeping the game at a 4-6 loss, so she only takes Minimog and 1 trash card instead of my whole hand. And after that little bit of business, she immediately says she's leaving Balam for greener pastures. Fortunately, her next destination is Dollet. That works out perfectly. We'll be seeing you there soon enough, Queen. Now we can finally board the train to Timber, setting off on a new journey. And here is where I'd like to end this part of the adventure. The team are set up on a train to a different continent on their first mission as professional mercenaries, and we just finished beating a pretty tough boss with fantastic rewards. The future is looking bright indeed. I sure hope we don't get transported into the head of some weirdo or anything like that. Thanks for watching, and I hope this challenge is interesting to you. I'm actually surprised at how much it has changed how I play the game. There are 2 more characters to add to the party in the next part, and I'm excited to introduce them and their abilities to you. What bosses do you think will be particularly challenging for this group? Have you got any predictions for MVP in this run? Let me know in the comments, and definitely let me know if you attempt a job challenge of your own. Part 2 will be coming soon, so please look forward to it. Have a good one.